Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast in Colossians. I hope it's a lovely day where you are. It's a bit cloudy today when I'm filming. We're looking today at chapter 1, verses 15 to 23. We're picking up wherever we left off. Paul in verse 13 told us how God rescued us from darkness through his Son, and how we are shown redemption and forgiveness. Paul continues with this language in our passage today. Now, maybe you read the passage and thought, wow. It's a bit like when you see a fantastic view or the sunrise. You just thought, wow, this is beautiful language. Or you maybe read the passage and thought, what? It's a bit like reading the poem. It's great language, but you have no idea what it is on about. Well, actually, that's what we're dealing with here. It is a poem. Remember from our last video that Paul wants the Colossians to grow in the knowledge of Christ. But as Paul's cosmic language suggests, knowing Christ is such a big thing because Christ is so big. This poem picks up on the idea of just how big and amazing Jesus is. So we're going to unpack this a bit together today. The poem starts off in verse 15, saying God is invisible. We can't see him. God doesn't have a physical presence that we can see day by day. But Jesus is God in physical form. And he was seen by people. If we know Jesus, then we know the Father, as Jesus shows us the Father. Jesus is the full image and character of God. We're then told he is the firstborn over creation. The word firstborn has a specific connotation about inheritance. So usually the firstborn inheriting their father's wealth. The suggestion is Jesus inherits all of creation from his father. The creation theme is continued into verse 16, where we learn he created all things. Jesus owns everything, not just the physical world around us, but also the spiritual and cosmic. Verse 17 continues that Jesus is not only the maker, but he existed before it all. Jesus is the creator God, and yet he also walked on earth. We also see Jesus actively sustains creation. Jesus didn't just make creation, he enables it to continue. Pause in for a moment. Maybe during your time together, you can look out at the creation around you and know Jesus made it and sustains it. Verse 18 starts our second section of this poem with the word and. As if being the firstborn of creation wasn't enough, Paul goes on to explain that Jesus is the head of a new creation. When we say new creation, it's God restoring everything to himself and removing sin and death. His creation as how it should be. We might be surprised to know that this new creation is seen in the church. Yes, that means Holy Trinity, the other churches in Norwich, and around the world. Jesus is the head of the church in verse 18, which is his people. Jesus is the firstborn from among the dead, meaning he is the first person to conquer death, to rise again. Christ's authority over the new creation is affirmed with Paul saying he has supremacy in verse 19. In verse 19 we see Jesus again reflects God's character as the fullness of God dwells in Jesus. Verse 20 summarizes what Jesus came on earth to do. He gave his life on the cross to reconcile, that is to restore, all things to God. Sin had separated us from God, but Jesus has meant we can know God as part of his new creation. What a fantastic poem. Paul now begins to sort of unpack more from his poem. So in verse 21, he reminds the Colossians that they were alienated from God. This is partly due to their sin, as he says, but also Gentiles were, before Jesus came along, excluded from God's covenant as they were not Israelites. But now, Jesus has, through his death, made it possible for everyone to be restored to God and to be presented perfect in front of him, without sin. Now, verse 23 might look at first as if to say that everything we have just read is only possible because of us. It's up to us to follow Jesus and receive all he has given to us. That's not what's going on here. Paul is saying if you keep going in the faith that has been established. Jesus has done everything to save us and started us on a journey of growing to know him more. As Christians, there can be the danger that we give up on faith and drift. Paul's charge to the Colossians and us is to keep going in faith. Know Jesus is with you on the journey and he will carry you through. It's a call to trust and depend on Jesus. I admit that was a lot of unpicking language and words, but sometimes it's needed in passages to understand the richness of what is being said, especially if we sometimes find it hard to read. Be encouraged in all Christ has done and continues to do in your faith. So here's some questions to help your discussions. Question 1. Just look back at verses 15 to 20 and including 21 and 22. Reflect on all the amazing things Jesus has done. Secondly, how does verses 15 to 22 affect our lives and how we view Jesus? And then finally, question 3. How can you encourage one another today to keep going in faith? Now, the questions are in the description below this video, but they'll also appear on the video after I finish talking, so you can pause the video and look back over those questions. Well, thank you for joining with me today. We're taking a break next week, but do take the time to meet up and pray together. Have a nice day. God bless.